Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. Russian shelling on the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson killed 15 civilians as engineers across the country sought to restore heat, water, and power to major cities. At least 3 people, including an adolescent girl, were killed and 11 others wounded when a 16-year-old shooter wearing Nazi symbols opened fire on 2 schools in southeastern Brazil. And dealing with a record number of COVID cases this week, China, despite the country's zero-tolerance lockdown policy, which is now stirring anger and protests.
The donation happened
and the Iglesia Ni Cristo donated to the Red Cross a sum amounting to 5 million won.
Last Monday.
First in our news, Russian shelling on the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson killed 15 civilians, according to officials, as engineers across the country are restoring heat, water, and power to major cities. Take a look. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that more than 6 million households in the country were still affected by power cuts 2 days after targeted Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The deadliest Russian bombardment in recent days hit Kherson, a key city in the east recently recaptured by Ukrainian forces. Earlier on Friday, the governor of Kherson region said hospital patients in the city and patients at a psychiatric unit had been evacuated because of constant Russian shelling. Kherson City Council said it was offering to evacuate civilians to other regions. The attacks on power stations and other infrastructure resources throughout Ukraine are Russia's latest attempt to force Ukrainian capitulation after Moscow's forces failed to topple the government and capture Kiev. Meanwhile, for the first time since he launched the war in February, Russian President Vladimir Putin met the mothers of soldiers fighting in Ukraine, assuring those whose children had been killed that he and Russia's elite share this pain.
И с началом мобилизации женщины решили, что нужно брать все в свои руки, потому что очень много было вопросов, а ответов не было. И мы начали активно действовать. Сейчас уже активные женщины у нас есть во всех городах. Это не свойственно. У нас обычно мужчины воюют, а женщины – это миротворцы. И мы хотели бы, чтобы вот этот конфликт прекратился, потому что Украина и Россия, ну, мы считаем в России, что это все равно братские народы.
В Совете, потому что я не могу равнодушно смотреть на то, что происходит у нас сейчас. Очень много вопиющих фактов, и самое главное, меня поражает равнодушие. И женщины, в принципе, всего народа равнодушие к тому, что происходит.
Но хочу, чтобы вы знали, и я лично, все руководство страны, мы разделяем эту боль. Понимаем, что ничего не может заменить утраты, обесценить, скомпрометировать и в конечном счете добиться их целей. А мы, как вы правильно сказали, как здесь все говорят, мы должны добиваться своих. И мы их добьемся, вне всяких сомнений.
President Putin told the 17 women that Moscow was fighting the neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine, and he warned that they should be wary of what they read on the internet. He also denounced what he called attempts by the enemy to devalue and compromise Moscow's tactics in Ukraine. The meeting is the first of its kind since President Putin launched the offensive on February 24. Ahead of President Putin's meeting, some activists said the get-together would not offer a platform for frank discussion. To Indonesia now, where a 7-year-old girl who was the subject of a day-long rescue effort after an earthquake killed at least 310 people in West Java has been found dead. Emergency workers found the body of Ashika Nur Fauzia, also known as Sika, under rubble in the worst-hit district of Sukenang, the epicenter of the quake that triggered landslides, collapsed buildings, and buried victims in mounds of earth on Monday. The focus of the search had been the girl's grandmother's house across the road from the family home where her mother believed she had been playing when the earthquake struck. Take a look.
Saya pikir anak saya yang nomor 2 yang ketimbun yang pikiran saya gak akan selamat. Gak tahu yang ini nomor 2 sampai sekarang belum ketemu. Saya juga bingung anak saya di mana. Walaupun sudah gak ada nyawanya, saya pengen lihat di sana dulu. Bisa ikhlas. Bagaimana hasilnya saya akan terima dengan ikhlas. Mungkin ini yang terbaik.
Rescuers covered her face and put her into a body bag as her father, Ahmad, watched on. Holding his head in despair, he did not utter a word as she was handed over to him. Sika was buried at a nearby cemetery less than an hour after being found. Before Sika was found, authorities said hammering rain and potentially deadly aftershocks were hampering rescue efforts. Andre Alfiandi, head of the National Search and Rescue Agency, said 17 bodies were recovered on Friday despite the challenges. Indonesia's National Disaster Mitigation Agency Chief Suryahanto, who like many Indonesians goes by one name, raised the toll from the quake to 310. He said at least 24 people remain missing after the quake caused landslides and building collapses in the West Java town of Cianjur. And there are disturbing new details about the gunman and his possible motive for Tuesday night shooting rampage inside a Walmart store in Chesapeake, Virginia. Take a look. Police released a message titled Death Note found on 31-year-old Andre Bing's cell phone in which he complained about being harassed and wrote he was tormented by his co-workers. Now, police say Bing legally purchased the 9mm handgun used in the shooting the same day as the attack, just hours before he killed 6 people and wounded 4 when Bing entered a staff break room around 10 p.m. and opened fire. We learned now that the youngest of the victims was 16 years old, and authorities said his name was Fernando Chavez Barron. Friends say the high school student had just started working the overnight shift at Walmart. Andre Bing, the overnight manager at Walmart in Chesapeake, committed suicide after Tuesday's shooting rampage. So far, in 2022, the Gun Violence Archive website has tracked more than 600 mass shootings in the U.S., defined as an incident with 4 or more people shot or killed, not including the shooter. At least 3 people, including an adolescent girl, were killed and 11 others wounded when a 16-year-old shooter wearing Nazi symbols opened fire on 2 schools in southeastern Brazil. Take a look. Authorities in the city of Aracruz in Espiritu Santo State said the shooter fired on a group of teachers at his former school, killing 2 people and leaving 9 others wounded. He then left the school, a public primary and secondary school, and went to a nearby private school where he killed an adolescent girl and wounded 2 other people. Authorities have arrested a shooter, according to Governor Renato Casagrande, who declared 3 days of mourning in the state. Security camera footage aired on Brazilian media showed a shooter running into the school dressed in military-style camouflage and brandishing a gun. He then sprinted through the hallway, sending staff fleeing in terror as he began firing shots. Investigators said he had a swastika on his fatigues and that they were looking into whether he had links to any extremist organizations. School shootings are relatively rare in Brazil, but have been increasing in recent years. And China is dealing with a record number of COVID cases this week. This despite the country's zero-tolerance lockdown policy, which is now stirring anger and protests. Take a look. Furious citizens hurling barricades and abuse at the police. Hundreds of employees are protesting over conditions and pay at Foxconn's vast iPhone factory on the outskirts of the city. The unrest in Gwangju comes against the backdrop of mounting public frustration over the government's zero-tolerance approach to COVID. These restrictions have been disastrous for the economy, and for these protesters, they've simply had enough. Authorities have ordered residents of 8 districts in Jiangsu, in the central province of Henan, not to leave the area for the next 5 days. China's daily caseload stood at 33,000 on Friday, a record for the country of 1.4 billion, although small by global standards. The Department of Health confirmed the detection of Omicron BQ.1, a descendant of BA.5, which has emerged as fast-spreading COVID-19 subvariant in the U.S., accounting for 27% of infections there as of October 29. Let's listen in.
Una-una, marami na po tayong variants na na-detect sa bansa, including the BQ.1 and BQ.1.1. Ang kailangan natin laging tatandaan, these variants this is part of the cycle of the virus. The virus will continuously mutate because it is part of their life cycle. Pareho pa rin po ang ating proteksyon na kailangan dyan. It should always be our minimum public health standards. Pati na rin po ang pinaka-importante, magpapapakuna tayo so that we get protection, especially against these variants.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, BQ.1 and the BQ.1.1 accounts for half of COVID-19 cases in the U.S. The BQ.1.1 has yet to be detected in the Philippines so far. The latest genome sequencing results of the UP Philippine Genome Center, Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, and San Lazaro Hospital from October 28 to November 18 showed that there were 14 cases of BQ.1. And of the number of cases, 13 were local cases from the NCR, Cordillera Administrative Region, Regions 1 and 4A and 7. Meanwhile, the Department of Health received 3.2 billion pesos worth of donations and official development assistance projects from the Japanese government. The donation included 600 refrigerated containers, 2 vehicles with freezers, wing vans, thermal packaging system, and webinars on the usage and maintenance of the equipment. Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, DOH officer in charge, said the equipment would play a vital role in the agency's continued reinforcement of the COVID-19 response and other healthcare services. With record waiting times, staff shortages, financial black holes, and now a nurses' strike over pay, the UK state-run National Health Service is facing an unprecedented crisis. The walkout by nurses next month heaps fresh misery on the much-loved but creaking institution, just as winter illnesses bite and as the country faces a prolonged recession. Ryan Florentino reports from London.
We're tired. We're fed up. We need a pay rise now to make a living, said Amira, a senior nurse in a London hospital who is going on strike. Dates for the nursing's first strike in 106 years were announced as union leaders and health workers blamed overwork, staff shortages, low pay, and the cost of living crisis. The Royal College of Nursing, or RCN, announced strikes in late December in its pay dispute with the government. Nurses will still provide emergency care, but routine services will be hit. The RCN said it had been given no choice after ministers would not reopen talks, but the government said the 19% pay rise demanded was unaffordable. This is likely to mean some urgent cancer services, urgent tests and scans, and ongoing care for vulnerable patients will be protected, alongside A&E and intensive care. Although it will be up to local health bosses and union leaders to negotiate exact staffing levels on these strike days.
We have to make an impact to make the government listen. And whilst we are really, really sorry that that will impact on some patients, we also want to say to patients, we're doing this for you, because every single day patients are being affected by the lack of nursing staff.
On the eve of Nursing Support Workers Day, I want to thank each and every one of our nursing support workers for everything they do for patients right across the UK, both in hospitals and communities, across the independent sector and in our care homes. We would not be able to provide the care and treatment without you as part of our nursing team.
The RCN has called for a rise of 5% above the RPI inflation rate, which currently stands at above 14%. But no UK nation has offered close to that. In England and Wales, NHS staff, including nurses, have been given a rise of at least £1,400, worth about 4% on average for nurses. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Ryan Florentino. Stay safe, for we live in extraordinary times.
Malaysia's new Prime Minister started his first day at work after saying he will govern for all as he reaches out across political divides. Alfred Balmes reports from Kuala Lumpur. Alfred.
Yesterday, the new Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim commenced his duty officially at Perdana Putra. His arrival at the main block of Bangonan Perdana Putra, which houses the Prime Minister's office at about 9:55 a.m., was received by the Chief Secretary to the government, Tan Sri Muhammad Suki Ali. Also present were Public Service Department Director General Datuk Seri Muhammad Shafi Abdullah, Attorney General Tan Sri Idrus Haruns, Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Akhlil Sani Abdullah Sani, and Army Chief General Tan Sri Samros Muhammad Sail. Anwar, who was attired in a Baju Melayu, complete with something, later clocked in at his office on the 5th floor of the building. Anwar, 75, took his oath as the 10th Prime Minister before the young Peduan Agong at Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah on November 24. At his maiden media conference as the Prime Minister, Anwar stressed that the unity of the government was formed with the participation of several parties to ensure the stability of the country and economy, as well as upholding the spirit of the federal constitution. He said the three largest components of the unity government are Pakatan Harapan, Barisan Nasional, and Gabungan Party Sarawak. Reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Alfred Balmes for Eagle News International. We live in extraordinary times.
Meanwhile, President Marcos Jr. congratulated opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim on his appointment as the new Prime Minister of Malaysia. Take a look.
Then I think we want your commitment that we should enhance the bilateral relations, trade, investments, cultural. You know, we used to do, most of our seniors did their MBEs and Asian Institute of Technology, AIT, second, and in Los Baños and University of the Philippines. You know, it's a great tradition in the past. And I think we need to do a bit more.
Facing, we have to really work together. Otherwise, we will not be able to get over this crisis of the inflation, of the agricultural commodities, all of that. I saw your statement that the economy will be your first priority, and I found myself in the same position. So we can, I think we can help each other with Malaysia and the Philippines.
And please, my respects to your mom.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. PM, I'm delighted to be able to address Your Excellency as Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim.
In snap elections, Anwar's Pakatan Harapan, or Alliance of Hope coalition, wins the most number of seats but falls short of the required majority. A political stalemate followed as his rival also claimed to have the numbers. Now the king intervened to break the impasse by calling for a unity government. Anwar is appointed Malaysia's 10th Prime Minister by the king. A firebrand youth activist during his student days, Prime Minister Anwar has spoken of his admiration for Philippine revolutionary hero Jose Rizal, describing him as a true Asian Renaissance man. In other news, at least 2 people died as heavy rains hit western Saudi Arabia, including the coastal city of Jeddah, delaying flights and forcing schools to close. Take a look. The Mecca region included Jeddah, the kingdom's second largest city of roughly 4 million people. The road connecting the two, which many pilgrims used to reach Mecca, was also closed once the rains began, according to state media, although it was later reopened. The official Saudi press agency reported before dawn that schools in the city would temporarily be closed as rains were forecast to continue throughout the day. Schools were also closed in the nearby towns of Rabigh and Kulais. The kingdom is in the middle of final examinations, and yet schools had already been closed nationwide after King Salman declared a holiday following Saudi Arabia's shock defeat of Argentina in the World Cup. Now, winter rainstorms and flooding occur almost every year in Jeddah, where residents have long decried poor infrastructure. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Handa na ba kayong malito? Ang tanong, sino si Tessa, sino si Corina?
Alam mo, May Forever.
May
Forever.
Yan ang gusto kong marinig sa kanya.
Iba-ibang version ng Forever. Wherever I go in the world, ako, bandera ng Pilipinas when it comes to fashion, everything, me represent.
Alam mo kung ilan ang gown mo?
2,000. I have to say, this is the first time, huh? I love it.
Teka muna, kung mga ikukwento yan. Sandali lang.
Okay.
Oo, huwag kayong uutang para lang may pambili ng luho.
Alam ko, may utang pa ako sa'yo. Pero, pwede ko madagdagan?
Ay, sabi mo kasi sa akin, Mars, babayaran mo ako sa katapusan. Dapat pala tinanong ko kung anong buwan, no? O kaya anong taon.
Gusto mo ba ibenta ko yung kidney ko para lang mabayaran yung utang ko sa'yo?
Kung kayo'y nagpautang, magbaon kayo ng maraming pasensya kapag kayo'y maniningil.
Love, Boss Leng and Tali. Tuwing linggo, alas 6 ng gabi dito lang sa Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together, wala talo pag together, let's get together sa Net25.
Welcome back. Turning now to the official start of the holiday shopping season, with an estimated 150 million shoppers in the U.S. hitting the stores, both in person and online. Let's listen in.
holiday coming up, people are willing to spend ahead of themselves a little bit to make sure they are having festivities. And in there, a sea of people coming in the door. Oh my goodness, it doesn't look like anything slowed down, not even a little. Prices for today, it's a perfect day to shop. The prices are down 30, 40, 60% on some things.
Yeah, probably about so. I think it made us look for sales more so than we usually would, just to be conservative with how much we're spending.
Definitely more than usual. I have already spent way more that's in my budget in grad school currently, so budget is like negative 300, so we've already crossed that just by being in New York City.
Leading forecast from Deloitte and the National Retail Federation project a single-digit percentage rise in sales, but this is unlikely to exceed the inflation rate. Industry experts have been cautious about this year's prospects in light of price pressures that have exacerbated concerns about an oversupply of goods. A year ago, retailers faced product shortfalls in the wake of shipping backlogs and factory closures related to the COVID-19. Now, to avert a repeat, the industry front-loaded holiday imports this year, leaving it vulnerable to oversupply at a time when consumers are cutting back. Countries like Britain and France have also been marking Black Friday as well. But with soaring inflation, merchants there face a similar dilemma. President Marcos Jr. has commended business tycoon and former Senate President Manuel Manny Villar for his key role in the improved relations between the Philippines and Japan. Take a look. Now, this was after President Marcos witnessed the Japanese government's conferment of the Order of the Rising Sun on Villar in a ceremony held at Malacañang Palace's Ceremonial Hall. We pay homage to your contribution to our country. Long live, President Marcos said in a Facebook post on Friday night as he shared several photos of the ceremonial awarding. Japanese Ambassador to the Philippines, Kazuhiko Koshikawa, on behalf of the government of Japan, bestowed the award on Mr. Villar. The Japanese government confers the Order of the Rising Sun, a Japanese decoration of honor, on individuals from both Japanese and foreign nationals who have made distinguished achievements in their field, as well as meritorious service and contributions to the advancement of Japan in a variety of areas except military service. In other news tonight, Kenyan cage fish farmers are suffering huge losses as their stock die inside their cages in Lake Victoria. Experts say the deaths are due to upwelling, a natural phenomenon that involves temperature changes and oxygen depletion, which could be exacerbated by climate change. Take a look.
So the effect of the farming in here is enormous. My estimate for all of the ogal fish, we are talking of maybe 1.8 billion or 2 billion, if you consider the kind of investment which the farmers have done in here. It's a huge loss to the economy.
It comes a time where the bottom water comes on top to replacing the warm water. And remember, this bottom water, in some cases, it's the one that is having low oxygen, hypoxia, or no oxygen, anoxic environment. So it displaces the top water and moves or covers some distance. Now, when it covers that distance, if it happens that it comes near a cage, the home of that fish will be now anoxic water that's not having any oxygen in it. And that will lead to the fish starting to suffocate, and then they eventually die. But if this low or zero oxygen water happens to pass over the wild where there's no cage, fish in that environment, if they will not manage to escape within that short time, they'll also end up dying.
Kisumi County in the southwest has been hardest hit, with one farmer estimating losses as high as 2 billion Kenyan shillings. That is over $16 million US. In tonight's other news, Peruvian President Pedro Castillo appointed the culture minister as the country's prime minister after her predecessor resigned over a row with parliament. Take a look. This is Betsy Chavez, 33-year-old lawyer who also did a stint as labor minister, and she was sworn in as the 5th Prime Minister since the beleaguered Castillo took office 16 months ago. The pair reshuffled the cabinet after former Premier Anibal Torres quit on Thursday amid an ongoing clash between the leftist Castillo and the conservative-controlled parliament. President Castillo, in power since July 2021, has already faced 2 impeachment attempts in parliament and is under investigation in 6 corruption cases, including accusations against his family and political entourage. Chavez herself is facing a preliminary investigation by Peru's prosecutor's office into allegations of misuse of power and hiring close associates for public positions. She must request a parliamentary vote of confidence within 30 days before formally taking office. The Philippine Consulate General in Barcelona hosted for the Europe region the 3-day training on the general instructions for the resumption of continuing registration for qualified overseas Filipinos for the 2025 national elections. Beverly Madrid reports from Barcelona, Spain. Bev.
The Philippine Consulate General in Barcelona hosted for the Europe region the 3-day training on the general instructions for the resumption of continuing registration for qualified overseas Filipinos for the 2025 national elections. The Philippine delegation to the training was led by Honorable Jesus S. Domingo, DFA Undersecretary and Chairperson of DFA Overseas Voting Secretariat, and Commissioners Honorable Socorro Inting and Honorable Ray Bulay from the Commission on Elections. Participants came from different Philippine Foreign Service posts in Europe. According to Honorable Bulay, the number of overseas Filipino voters dropped from over 1.8 million in 2019 to 1.6 million plus in 2022 due to the deactivation of double registrants. He also added that COVID-19 pandemic had a negative impact on voter registration and participation.
It's something like this. In 2016, total number of registered overseas voters, 1.3 million plus. In 2019, 1.8 million plus. Magtataka ka, in 2022, bumawa sa 1.6 million plus. Ang rason doon, yung deactivation. Yun nga, yung doble-doble. Merong registro doon, lumipat dito, hindi pa nakaka-cancel yung registration doon, nag-registro dito. So, na-cleanse namin yun noong 2022. Kaya, lumabas yung totoong numero. No? Now, assuming, ganun pa rin yung trend. Wala na tayong COVID ngayon. Remember, may COVID noon. Hindi gumagana yung mga institutions, kaya mababa.
As part of the public information campaign to intensify the partnership of the COMELEC and the DFA through the Overseas Voting Secretariat, Honorable Domingo emphasized the importance of Filipino communities, organizations, and media in informing and encouraging the Filipinos to register.
Community. So we really appealed for the help of the Filipino community organizations to be our force multipliers, to not just their members, but mga kaibigan, kapitbahay, and the entire Filipino community. And really, it's all about information, because we cannot afford to delay or to extend, because that has a multiplying, cascading effect every moment of delay. Because you just think about the logistics, kasi yung mga balote, things are emanating from Manila. So just imagine the shipment and that. So we really see 2 pillars of support: youth and media, especially our community and global media, Filipino media, and our Filipino community organization. So yes, we need your help to really get the word out for.
Consul General Maria Teresa S.M. Lazaro ensured the participation of the Philippine Consulate General in Barcelona in helping the government to disseminate the information about the voter registration.
In helping the consulate, the government, to disseminate the information about doing it early. Registration kasi we also exert our best to reach out to the community. we go to different places just to be able to register and enfranchise as many Filipinos as possible. So,
registration of qualified overseas Filipino voters will resume on December 9, 2022 through September 30, 2024. New registrants and deactivated registrants must register in person at Philippine consular offices to update their biometrics. This is Beverly Madrid, Spain Bureau. We live in extraordinary times.
And we'll go for a short break. Eagle News, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
It is inevitable that we adapt to the latest technology in order to be ahead of the game. One such technology is blockchain and how it is creating waves in the digital space as the go-to decentralized ledger of data. Sounds intimidating. Then let us learn together from the experts we spoke with at the first Global Blockchain Summit in Bataan.
Blockchain will be actually the future, right? Pero yung fundamental, kailangan may ayos. Bago ka naman dumating doon, at least educate, create awareness, and step-by-step model.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m. Season finale na! At hindi lang trip down to memory lane ng peg ng 16th anniversary special ng Moments. Dahil mas pina-espesyal pa ito ng guest host at hubby ni Gladys Reyes na si Christopher Rojas.
Nagbabalik po uli yung Moments at kasama niyo pa rin po kami mag-asawa.
Wow, host bebe
Hindi, tinatry ko lang. May question ako.
Oo.
Bakit pag nagsasalta ako, di ka nakikinig?
Nakikinig ako.
Hindi.
Hindi ko na siya pinasalita, baka may sabihin pa.
Samahan kami sa isang treasure hunt na puno ng katatawanan, kulitan, at pagbabalik tanaw sa special moments ng programa.
Nag-guess ko na to sa moment?
Oo.
Tao to?
Hindi.
Ano ba ako guess sa moments na hindi tao? Teka.
Abangan yan ngayong Sunday, 4 to 5 p.m. sa Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together, wala talo pag together, let's stand together sa Net25.
Yung special guest natin, talaga namang special.
Multi-awarded actress na si Alessandra De Rossi!
Ano ang nagpapaligaya sa'yo? Lena.
Action!
Ano bang sasabihin mo sa akin?
Magpapakalayo na ako.
Robot ka ba? At ikaw bakit ang ultimanong ka mga anak ka ba dito? Tis ka ba?
Sapat ang talino para manalo. Kailangan nilang bilis ng kamay para hindi matalo.
Please welcome our Gamers na models.
Halika, kayo na may papasa yung tanong na yan.
Sa'yo! Sa'yo na lang.
Ano ang tawag sa isang strand ng spaghetti?
Spaghetti rin.
Ano ang tawag sa isang strand ng spaghetti? Spaghetti rin. And this is the game! Level up!
NASA's Orion spacecraft was placed in lunar orbit as the much-delayed moon mission proceeded successfully. First, let's listen in.
And you're seeing there on your screen our first Earth views. This view of Earth captured from a human-rated spacecraft not seen since 1972 during the final Apollo mission some 50 years ago. Orion looking back at Earth as it travels toward the moon 57,000 miles away from the place we call home.
A little over a week after the spacecraft blasted off from Florida bound for the moon, flight controllers successfully performed a burn to insert Orion into a distant retrograde orbit, according to the U.S. Space Agency. The spacecraft is to take astronauts to the moon in the coming years, the first to set foot on its surface since the last Apollo mission in 1972. While in lunar orbit, flight controllers will monitor key systems and perform checkouts while in the environment of deep space. It'll take Orion about a week to complete half an orbit around the moon. It'll then exit the orbit for the return journey home. On Saturday, today, the ship is expected to go up to 40,000 miles beyond the moon, a record for a habitable capsule. The current record is held by the Apollo 13 spacecraft at 248,655 miles from the Earth. It'll then begin the journey back to Earth with a landing in the Pacific Ocean. This will be scheduled for December 11. Miss Grand International President Nawat Itzaragrizil and Filipino pageant aficionado Arnold Vegafria both formally launched the Miss Grand Philippine pageant at the Grand Ballroom of the Hilton, Manila. Mr. Nawat apologized as a gesture of renewing ties with Filipino pageant fans who were disappointed after Samantha Panlilio failed to place in the 2021 MGI pageant. Mr. Nawat is addressing the recent differences between him and some Filipino pageant fans by personally visiting the country to launch the national search for Miss Grand Philippines by tagging along with him his 2022 MGI queens. Pageant media and pageant vloggers graced the event, eager to ask questions from both Mr. Nawat and Mr. Vegafria. The Binibining Pilipinas Charities Incorporated announced to recall that it has withdrawn from the Thai-based beauty pageant Miss Grand International and will no longer renew its franchise. Let's listen in.
I think it's a quite long time. A lot of Philippine fans, maybe some of them don't understand us very well, and they don't know us very well. And some of the rumor and some of the people, they not get along with us quite long time. So that's why they always talking different things. But by the way, I respect them. I would like to let them start again to study step one. Start from step one again. You will know who am I.
I always come to talk, to see their face, try to explain. So the most important, I believe, I say all the time, this is the one of the capital beauty pageant in the world. To make a beauty queen and won so many beauty pageant contests in the world.
The early evening event was graced by the presence of the MGI 2022 top 10 queens who were all dressed in white. Each MGI queen gave a short speech while Mr. Nawat emphasized his mission of helping Filipinos in visiting the country over so many years. First runner-up Engfa Waraha of Thailand was the only member of the court who wasn't present during this event. The Binibining Pilipinas Charities' last Philippine representative was Roberta Tamondong, and she landed in the top 20 during the coronation night in Indonesia last October 25. 5 days later, however, the MGI organization appointed Tamondong as one of the 5th runners-up of Miss Grand International 2022 after Yugna Rinishita of Mauritius resigned. No Filipina beauty queen has ever been crowned winner of Miss Grand International, but the Philippines remains to have one of the top performance records in MGI by winning 6 runners-up positions in its 10-year pageant history. The launch of Miss Grand Philippines was marked by an overall positive atmosphere, hopeful for renewed ties with Filipino pageant fans. In tonight's other news, host nation Qatar crashed out of the World Cup after a second straight defeat before an uninspired England missed the chance to wrap up qualification for the last 16 following a 0-0 draw with the U.S. Let's listen in.
Something that was unexpected since we won the AFC Championship back in 2019. We saw a team that could really progress in the World Cup, especially with the nation hosting it. but the management hasn't been there.
I feel like no one ever expected us to even win, but at least I thought we'd reach the round of 16, because just a few years ago we were the best team in Asia, and the teams we beat to get there just beat Argentina and Germany.
You know, I was really hoping for like a huge upset. I wanted Qatar to beat a South American team. You know, the South American teams are known for their strength. I just wish Qatar would have taken that into consideration and prepared a little more.
Qatar lost 3-1 to Senegal and became the first team to be knocked out of this World Cup after the Netherlands and Ecuador drew 1-1 in the other Group A game. Asian champions Qatar had high hopes coming into the tournament, but become only the second home team to crash out in the group stage after South Africa in 2010. Goals from Boulaya Dia, Famara Didu, and Bamba Dieng were enough to give African champion Senegal the win. Mohamed Muntari scored Qatar's only World Cup goal so far in a deeply disappointing debut on football's biggest stage. It is the first time a World Cup host nation has gone out after just 2 games. In NBA action, LeBron James returned from a 5-game injury absence to score 21 points as the Los Angeles Lakers beat the Spurs 105-94 in San Antonio for their first road win of the NBA season. James pulled down 8 rebounds and handed out 5 assists with 3 steals and a blocked shot in 33 minutes on the floor, with Lakers coach Darvin Ham saying the 4-time NBA champion looked phenomenal after missing 5 games with a groin injury. In San Antonio, all eyes were on James, who is on track, if he stays healthy, to surpass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the league's all-time leading scorer as early as February. He scored the first basket of the contest as the Lakers quickly powered to a double-digit lead. They led 59-41 at the halftime, but the young Spurs team had sliced the deficit to 81-78 by early in the fourth. The Lakers responded, James' dunk taking the lead back to 10 points. And tonight, Southern News, South Korea's capital launches its first self-driving bus route on part of an experiment which engineers said aims to make the public feel more comfortable with driverless vehicles on the roads. The new vehicle looks different from a regular bus with rounded edges and giant, smooth windows that make it appear more like a toy than a technological breakthrough. Take a look.
We developed this technology for not only for specific this car, we want to develop some general intelligence for autonomous driving. So we already deploy the similar technology on as a robot taxi, and we migrate the same version into the buses. We want to deploy as many as possible in the public road, and the technology should be cheaper, and at the same time, technology should be robust. For the safety purpose, we are operating as a manual at the moment, but eventually we will remove the driver. It's also related to our government rule. Some people are fascinated about the new technology, but the others worry about the technology as well. So we, as much we show up many times and people get used to see autonomous driving in the public road, they will accept. The outfit is very different compared to the normal vehicle, so people are looking at when you passing through. So the design itself very unique, and they also fascinated about this is autonomous driving car.
타임머신 타고 그냥 미래에 쏙 들어가 갖고 미래 여행을 이렇게 하고 온 것 같아요.
The bus looks a bit like Lego and is made of composite parts to help keep costs down and make it easy to replicate. It uses cameras and radar to navigate the way instead of expensive sensors. The company's goal was to make the technology low cost, safe, and easily transferable to many types of vehicles in the future. For example, delivery trucks. But for now, with a safety driver monitoring closely, the bus will drive itself around a small 3.4 kilometer or 2.1 mile circuit in downtown Seoul that takes around 20 minutes. The public can board at 2 designated stops after booking a free seat through an app. The Iglesia Ni Cristo donated to the Red Cross a sum amounting to 5 million won. Reporting from South Korea, here's Kristen Jewel Uy Yabot reporting from Seoul.
Iglesia Ni Cristo once again did a humanitarian activity here in South Korea. And this time, they donated in the Korean Red Cross. As the Care for Humanity project of the Iglesia Ni Cristo in South Korea continues, the last part was done in Korean Red Cross. The donation happened exactly on the birthday of the church's executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, last Monday, October 31st. This is not the first time that the church gave donation to the Korean Red Cross. It was also done last year on the same month as the drive of continuous support and love of the church to those in need.
그래서 가장 그 미션으로 하고 있는 부분은 이제 인간의 생명을 보장한다.
Since 1905, the Korean Red Cross is a special purpose entity established under the Korean Red Cross Organization Act and serves as a public institution, disaster management agency, non-profit organization, legal donation organization, public healthcare institution, and blood services execution organized together. Precious donations will be delivered to the vulnerable groups such as the single elderly households and children raised by grandparents and others who are without government support. Also, we carry out disaster relief activities for the victim countries suffering from various disasters and crises such as Ukraine war or damage of forest fire and so on. Moreover, we provide medical services for people who need public health care and providing blood services as well. We're going to make continuous efforts to discover other vulnerable groups and help those with your precious donations. Thank you.
특교 교인들과 같이 저희들 우리 적십자 운동도
Through this pandemic situations, we are learning that we are not alone and we can overcome crisis with the power of connection. We are very thankful to the Church of Christ to join the humanitarian movement with the mind of love and kindness. We will faithfully carry out our mandates and missions to deliver our hope to people in need around us. Very, very thank you.
Thank you so much.
The Korean Red Cross has 7 fundamental principles, which involves humanity, impartiality, neutrality, independence, voluntary service, unity, and universality. The programs and services involves blood service, emergency and general relief, health and safety, inter-Korean, international operations, and concerning about the youth. Last October 23rd, the Church of Christ also did a blood donation drive here in South Korea in different locations such as Guro, Seoul, Suwon and Bucheon in Gyeonggi Province, Daegu, and in Busan. This blood donation drive is also done every year to support the ones in need, especially during the times of pandemic. This is Christine Jewel Uyabut from Seoul, South Korea. We live in extraordinary times.
As always, I'll end the week on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angela. Stay alert, stay informed, because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.